I kind of mixed everything together and came up with my own little genre. I felt like more heart and soul and real lyrics and stories should be brought back into popular music.
Progression as an artist is the most important thing for me. That is what success is for me. I always want to challenge myself. I always want to have that nervous ball in my stomach before I go on the stage. That's how I know I'm doing the right job.
I just want to make music that makes people feel.
My mama's birthday's January 4th. My husband's birthday's December 4th. My birthday's September 4th. And on April 4th, 2008, somebody put a ring on it.
It's just a really lucky number for me, and since this is the most personal album, I figured it was time to name it my favorite number.
I've said it before, but Beyoncé's crusade in the last 14 years has been to keep the concept of an album alive in a modern day industry that is only interested in pushing singles and viral moments rather than full bodies of work. Beyoncé's album run in the 2000s focused on establishing her as an artist. It set the foundation of just who Beyoncé is. This is what most of the general public remembers her for: Crazy in Love, Irreplaceable, Single Ladies. At the turn of the 2010s decade, Beyoncé was and had been a household name for quite some time. She'd established herself as a fixture in modern music. Now was the time for her to challenge the world's idea of just who she was as an artist. If she was to grow and evolve, she would have to push herself to do things unheard of. Beyoncé in the 2010s was an artist who would not settle for simply doing the bare minimum, nor would she be content with doing what everyone else was doing. 2013's Self-Titled and 2016's Lemonade were not only groundbreaking releases in Beyoncé's career, but culturally shifting releases in music history that stopped the world upon their release. But Beyoncé challenged conventions prior to either of those records. The trilogy of her releases in the 2010s decade began with an album that the world wasn't quite ready for at the time of its release, but is looked back upon fondly in hindsight. It was the beginning of a new arc in the career of Beyoncé. That album was simply titled 4.
What a crowd, what a crowd.
Tired?
No, I'm good. After I finished the last tour, I was a bit overwhelmed and overworked. And my mother was the person that preached to me and almost harassed me every day after I was doing the last world tour. You really need to live your life and open your eyes, and you don't want to wake up with no memories and never really being able to see the world. The Great Wall of China. I've done many things in my life, but this is the first.
The I Am Sasha Fierce era, which ran from 2008 to 2010, was by far the lengthiest and most grueling era of Beyoncé's solo career at that point. The album spawned a whopping 9 singles and was supported by the worldwide spanning I Am Tour, which consisted of 110 shows across 6 continents. I Am Sasha Fierce to date has sold 10 million copies, making it one of the best-selling albums of the 21st century, and won 6 Grammys in one night, the most won in one night by any female artist ever. The Beyoncé promotion machine was in full effect during this era, her exposure being at an all-time high. These days, we are lucky to see Beyoncé in any capacity, honestly, let alone an award show. But it's important to realize that this woman had more than paid her debts by the time the Sasha Fierce era concluded. Remembering just how widespread Beyoncé's exposure was in the 2000s is key to understanding her approach to her music and image in the 2010s and beyond. Following the conclusion of the Sasha Fierce era in 2010, Beyoncé made a deliberate decision to take a break and live life and be inspired by things again. During this hiatus, she retired her alter ego Sasha Fierce, feeling that she no longer needed to separate the two personas. The death of Sasha Fierce was key in the evolution of Beyoncé's artistry and image. It was a very intentional move towards giving the world the true, unfiltered Beyoncé. In a bold move, she also severed the professional ties with her father and longtime manager, Matthew Knowles, who had managed her career since her Destiny's Child days. This decision left her feeling vulnerable, but it also marked a significant turning point in her career. Beyoncé expressed frustration with the state of contemporary radio at the time, particularly the lack of R&B representation. experimentation. The years of 2011 and 2012 saw the explosion of EDM and pop music as the main charting force of the time. This also saw a sharp decline in traditional R&B music, possibly the darkest period for the genre in history. In her early days with Destiny's Child and in her first two solo eras, R&B and hip-hop had been the primary charting force in the mainstream, and many traditional pop-leaning artists had to cross over into the R&B genre in order to stay relevant. As the 2000s decade approached its end, the first signs of a shift in the industry began to appear and the script began to flip. 2008 alone saw the debut and rapid rise of pop acts like Lady Gaga and Katy Perry, both of which saw a swift rise to the top of the charts with their debut records and would come to dominate the coming decade. Simultaneously, traditionally R&B artists that saw success in the earlier half of the 2000s struggled to replicate that success in the latter half. Beyoncé was quite literally pushing her biggest era yet in the midst of a pretty huge shift in the music industry. By the time the Sasha Fierce era had concluded, acts like Justin Bieber, Bruno Mars, and Kesha had become mainstays on the chart, while artists like Neo, Ciara, and T.I. struggled to rise on the same chart that they dominated previously. Many traditionally R&B artists had a tough decision to make during this period: adapt to the new sound and get out of their comfort zones while risking alienating their core fan bases, or stick to their R&B sound and become somewhat overlooked. Beyoncé, as special as she is, was not exempt from this hard decision. Ultimately, her goal with her fourth album was to bring R&B back to the forefront. She aimed to create something fresh by blending classic R&B with various other genres. She wanted the album to feature musical changes, bridges, vibrato, live instrumentation, and classic songwriting, all aspects of music that had been thrown to the side in contemporary popular music. Beyoncé herself described her fourth album and era as an evolution, reflecting on her own growth and maturity. She focused on crafting timeless songs that she could perform throughout her life, seeking to create music that was artistically rich rather than purely commercial. She also found additional influences in Earth, Wind & Fire, The Stylistics, Lauryn Hill, Stevie Wonder, and Michael Jackson. Beyoncé also looked to bring soul singing back. Her approach to her vocals on 4 was more akin to her live performances rather than her previous studio recordings. She wanted to bring the brassiness and grit of her live vocals to the record. The album is definitely an evolution. It's bolder than the music on my previous albums because I'm bolder. The more mature I become and the more life experiences I have, the more I have to talk about. I really focused on songs being classics, songs that would last, songs that I could sing when I'm 40 and when I'm 60.
But I like the idea of this album. You took your time with this one. You took a year off.
I did.
And you just did fun stuff.
I did. I did not put any limitations. I didn't put, I didn't even say I'm gonna do any specific type of album. I just did whatever I loved, and I was inspired by so many different travels and types of music that I was exposed to, going to watch my sister DJ and, going to some of the festivals and watching my husband perform. And I was really inspired by Africa and Fela Kuti and jazz, and I kind of mixed everything together and came up with my own little genre. So I'm proud of this album.
Congratulations, number one, of course. I mean, number 4 is the name of the album, but it was number 1. There you go. So a little confusion there.
A little bit.
The sound of Beyoncé's 4 was a major departure from anything that Beyoncé had put out at the time, having a noticeably more mellow and soulful vibe. And even in hindsight, the album still stands out amongst Beyoncé's other releases, pushing her forward artistically while setting a firm foundation for what she would deliver later in her career. The earliest recording that made the final album was the song Party, which featured the sole collaboration of the album, a guest verse from Andre 3000, as well as uncredited vocals from Kanye West. Party could be considered a cornerstone track of 4 as it represents the overall throwback vibe of the record perfectly, exhibiting elements of 1980s funk and soul. Kanye West wasn't initially involved in the song, however, Beyoncé was so enamored with his work on his then most recent album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and sought his creative input. Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and Kanye all worked closely with one another in the final months of 2010, as Beyoncé worked on 4, while the latter two simultaneously worked on their joint album, Watch the Throne. Beyoncé would provide vocals on the song Lift Off from that album. 1+1 is the opening track on 4 and is yet another key song, perfectly setting the tone of the record while also representing what Beyoncé desired to do vocally on this album. The song's stripped production takes a backseat to Beyoncé's emotive vocals. The instrumentation of 1+1 is almost non-existent as her voice is meant to be front and center here. Originally titled Nothing But Love, the song originally belonged to The Dream, but he gave it to Beyoncé. Much like its parent album, 1+1 was a huge departure from what a listener would have grown accustomed to hearing from Beyoncé back in 2011. Just looking at the album openers of her previous 3 albums, Crazy in Love, Deja Vu, and Single Ladies, there was a clear pattern here. When you turned on a Beyoncé album, you were greeted by a bombastic, fiery anthem. Then we get to 4, and you're thrown completely for a loop, being greeted with a subdued yet powerful ballad driven almost entirely by vocals. No thumping bass or horns or sassy catchy hook to be found. 4 continues its restrained opening with its second and third tracks, I Care, and the Frank Ocean written I Miss You, 2 more songs that emphasize raw vocals and emotion over production. Even the more up-tempo cuts of 4 are distinct from anything that preceded them in Beyoncé's discography. Songs like Countdown, Love on Top, School and Life, and Lay Up Under Me are built from the ground up with a throwback classic R&B and soul vibe in mind. Another key track of the record is the sensual Dance For You, which is made available on the deluxe edition of the album alongside School and Life and Lay Up Under Me. One of Beyoncé's most underrated songs, Dance For You calls back to the sensuality and seductiveness of Janet Jackson. Another criminally overlooked song on 4 actually delayed the album's final mixing by a week. The reflective ballad I Was Here was the final song recorded for the album and expresses Beyoncé's desire to leave an impact on the world before the end of her life. To me, I Was Here always felt like one of those songs that should have been way bigger than what it was. The uniqueness of I Was Here lies in the fact that its meaning grows stronger and stronger with each passing year as Beyoncé continues to one-up herself. Out of the 72 songs that Beyoncé submitted for the album, only 12 were selected for the final standard edition track list.
Boy, I know you love it, how we smart enough to make these millions, strong enough to bear the children. It's too hard. All in one breath.
I feel very vulnerable when I perform a song for the first time. I may not say it, but I'm terrified. When I did Girls, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I here? What am I doing? Why did I do this?
The world's first taste of the new Beyoncé would come with Run the World Girls as the lead single released on April 21st, 2011. Beyoncé was motivated to create something distinct, a blend of different cultures and eras with a fresh sound and a powerful message of female empowerment. Run the World is a very Beyoncé-esque song, given its message of female empowerment, but what sets it apart from her previous lead singles is its complex and unique production. That fact made the song feel familiar, yet fresh. Run the World was, and still is to a degree, one of Beyoncé's most polarizing songs. While some praised its innovative sound and Beyoncé's fierce delivery, others felt like it was a continuation of familiar themes seen in her previous hits like Independent Women with Destiny's Child and Single Ladies Put a Ring on It. In retrospect, reviews and opinions of the song, many simply didn't feel the song compared to her other lead singles, while others flat out just think it's bad. I've personally seen on more than one occasion those that seem to think Run the World was a bad choice for a lead single, and that songs such as Countdown or End of Time would have been better performing lead singles. Personally, I lean on the side of Run the World being the perfect lead. While I don't think it accurately represents what the entire album has to offer, Run the World Girls was very clearly made and pushed to be held up alongside Crazy in Love and Single Ladies as signature anthems for Beyoncé. In the US, the song peaked at number 29 on the Billboard Hot 100, being Beyoncé's second worst performing lead single of her entire career. Despite lukewarm reception all around, Beyoncé would go on to perform Run the World like it was the number 1 song worldwide, and rightfully so. The first live performance of Run the World Girls would be for Oprah of all people, as Beyoncé performed it during the final episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show, which ended its 25-year-long run in 2011. Just 5 days later, Beyoncé would give a legendary performance of the song at the 2011 Billboard Music Awards, where she received the Millennium Award. A little over a month later, Beyoncé would perform the song as part of her set list as the headliner of the 2011 Glastonbury Festival, where she became the first woman to headline the festival in over 20 years. She also performed the song on X Factor France and Good Morning America. The song has become a staple in all of her tour set list, having a permanent spot on the Miss Carter Show Tour, the On the Run Tour, the Formation Tour, the On the Run 2 Tour, and the Renaissance World Tour, where not even single ladies made the cut for that one. It's always been a theory of mine that Beyoncé absolutely adores this song, and she refuses to stop performing it as a sort of haha moment aimed at those that didn't like the song when it was released. And overall, her dedication to performing the song like it was a hit despite its mediocre reception by her standards is a testament to the kind of artist that Beyoncé is. Nowadays, a lead single underperforming would warrant an artist or label scrapping it and starting over completely at the risk of jeopardizing the artistic vision and cohesion intended for the era. Beyoncé very clearly wanted to lead the era with this record and planned to push it no matter how it did commercially or critically. Best Thing I Never Had was released on June 1st, 2011 as a second single from 4. A pop and R&B ballad, the song was not originally written as one. Early demos of the song actually sounded similar to late 1980s hip-hop. Best Thing I Never Had peaked at number 16 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart, actually outdoing Run the World on the charts, and was the highest charting song from 4. Despite this, Best Thing I Never Had is by far one of Beyoncé's more forgotten singles. Even Beyoncé herself has yet to perform the song since the end of the 4 era. Nonetheless, it's a gem in her discography and a classic Beyoncé song. Party followed as the third single from 4, being released on August 30th, 2011. The throwback anthem Love on Top was released as the fourth single from 4 on September 2nd, 2011. A highlight of the album and Beyoncé's discography, Love on Top takes heavy inspiration from the styles of R&B greats like Stevie Wonder, Whitney Houston, and the Jackson 5. The song is most notable for the vocal acrobatics displayed by Beyoncé towards the end, showcasing an astonishing 4 key changes, making it a notoriously difficult song to cover. She performed the song at the 2011 MTV Video Music Awards, famously announcing her pregnancy at the end of her performance. Being 5 months pregnant at the time, the live announcement set a Twitter record with 8,868 tweets per second. The reveal helped make the event the most watched broadcast in MTV history, drawing 12.4 million viewers. Beyoncé pregnant became the most searched term from August 29th to September 4th, 2011, indicating a search spike of over 5,000%. The hoopla surrounding Beyoncé's VMA performance caused an upsurge of Love on Top on several charts worldwide, reaching the top 10 in Hungary and the top 20 in Australia, Italy, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States, where it debuted at number 20, thus becoming the second highest debut of Beyoncé's career as a solo artist. Selling over 1 million copies, Love on Top also won a Grammy Award for Best Traditional R&B Performance. After Love on Top, the remaining singles run of the album became a bit hard to follow. The era would enter a sort of limbo state as Beyoncé reached the final trimester of her pregnancy. Countdown was released as the final US single and in select parts of Europe beginning October 4th, 2011. Before her pregnancy was revealed, Beyoncé filmed most of the music videos from the album back-to-back. Countdown was the fourth one filmed. I Care was released exclusively in Italy on March 23, 2012, and End of Time was released exclusively in the United Kingdom on April 23, 2012 as the final single overall from 4. Despite not being officially pushed as singles, 1+1 and Dance For You both received music videos as well. Released on June 24, 2011, Beyoncé's 4 debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 310,000 copies in its first week. This gave Beyoncé her 4th consecutive solo album at the time to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart, making her the second female artist at the time after Britney Spears and third overall, tied with Britney and DMX, to have their first 4 albums debut atop the Billboard 200. 4's first week sales became Beyoncé's lowest sales start with a studio album to date. The lack of a hit single from the album was cited as one of the reasons for the album's lackluster release, but overall, its heavy R&B sound and its more subdued vibe just wasn't popular at the time. 4 is Beyoncé's only studio album to not house any top 10 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, the highest charting song in the US being Best Thing I Never Had. It's worth mentioning that the underperformance of the singles was really a US only issue, as most of the singles from 4 did far better overseas. Despite that, 4 was still the 3rd largest sales week of 2011 in the United States, behind Lady Gaga's Born This Way and Adele's 21. The album actually experienced a pretty notorious leak just 17 days before its scheduled release, prompting Beyoncé's legal team to take swift action. Amid the leak, rumors surfaced suggesting that Columbia Records executives were concerned that 4 might not perform well commercially. There were even claims that the label asked Beyoncé to make changes to the album last minute, and they even considered getting her to reunite with Destiny's Child. Columbia denied all these rumors, however. The entire 4 leak fiasco is actually what drove Beyoncé to keep her self-titled follow-up album under complete wraps until its surprise release in December of 2013.
I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my... Forget all of trying to compete or trying to outdo yourself. You should be doing it just because you love it. And that's what I always want to have. I never want to lose that. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I only have to follow my heart. I'll run my world.
4 is a masterpiece of an album. However, not a lot of people realize or acknowledge that this really was an era where her detractors were singing the Beyoncé's overclaims. Her singles weren't doing as well as her previous releases, and overall, she wasn't hitting the commercial highs that came to be expected of her. Add in the fact that 4 received lukewarm and mixed reviews from both critics and fans, and we have an album that has become the poster child of the 4th album curse. I was in the category of listeners who weren't too fond of the album upon its release. At the time, it just wasn't the Beyoncé that the world was used to. It was a side of Beyoncé that the world would need to warm up to. 4 may not seem all that out of the ordinary for Beyoncé nowadays, but you have to realize that back in 2011, getting such a ballad-driven record from the same woman who gave us Crazy in Love, Deja Vu, Ring the Alarm, Single Ladies, and Diva was a little bit jarring to some. And you could argue that the I Am half of I Am Sasha Fierce was nothing but ballads, but that had the Sasha Fierce side of the album to balance it out. The aforementioned combined with the domination of pop in 2011, and you get 4's shaky initial reception. I don't remember when 4 finally clicked for me, but when it did, I realized that we owe a lot of who Beyoncé is currently to this very album. 4 is quite frankly a beautifully crafted record. You can hear a passion in Beyoncé's voice that wasn't present on her previous records. And sure, if you're looking at it from a purely commercial standpoint, then yes, 4 is a low point for Beyoncé when compared to her other releases. Numbers and chart positions aside, 4 ultimately achieved what Beyoncé set out to do with it, and that was to make a record that is timeless. It was actually surreal to see the opinion of 4 change in real time. The 4 album and era was such an interesting era in Beyoncé's career for a multitude of reasons. It's more than an era, it's a bridge, a visible connection between 2 very different arcs of Beyoncé's career. 4 is unique in that you have the hunger, drive, and passion of 2000s Beyoncé with the newfound confidence and desire to innovate that characterized the Beyoncé of the 2010s. 4 was the first album in which we saw Beyoncé grow tired of catering to the masses and appeasing the public based on what they expected of her. Her artistry took the forefront of what she would do from here on out, and that can be seen consistently in her creative and artistic choices for every album since 4. 4 was the first time that we saw Beyoncé deliberately go against the status quo in any capacity, and despite its lukewarm reception, the album was her following her artistic vision above all else, no longer being concerned with being safe with her music or choices. And best of all, it was only the beginning of an artistic golden age in the career of Beyoncé. It's worth mentioning that the underperformance of the singles was really It's worth mentioning that the underperformance of the singles was really a US only issue, as most of the singles from 4 were Let's get it together. 4 where am I starting? Okay. It's worth mentioning that the underperformance of the singles was really only a US only why can't I say this one sentence? People really did not like this album when it came out. I was in the category. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.